Hi folks, FPL General here again, recording a new episode of my 59th minute FPL podcast. Recording on Tuesday, August 27th, so going to look back on how Gameweek 3 went, and more importantly, look ahead to Gameweek 4. Hard to believe we're approaching the first international break of the season, so I always find the first international break is a good time to take stock, have a more detailed look at the stats, and get a picture of where we're at for the season. So looking forward to sitting down next week and kind of going through things with a fine tooth comb, and seeing what trends are emerging for this season. So going to follow similar structure as usual. Shout outs, game week review, talk about my watch list, answer some questions, and finish with captaincy and transfers for game week 4. So getting straight into it, again, we're 3 game weeks in and there's yet to be anyone hauled off in the dreaded 59th minute. So still waiting patiently for the first shout out of the season. A couple of notable mentions this week. João Moutinho at Wolves managed 58. Ceballos at Arsenal, thanks to everyone who sent me messages last week complaining about my Caballos pronunciation. So I'm told it's Ceballos, so I'm going to try and get that right from now on. So the Arsenal man managed 60 minutes, so just about missed out on a shout out. And Gylfi Sigurdsson, FPL legend of seasons gone by, another disappointing performance, hauled off in the 61st minute. So hopefully game week 4 will bring us the first 59th minute candidate of the season. Moving into a review of game week 3 now. I won't dwell on this too much. Game week 3 was a good one for me. I toiled with the wildcard and in the end decided against it, thankfully, because I would have got rid of Mo Salah, I think, if I wildcarded last week. So in the end, the -4 paid off. I got rid of Wilson, Fraser and Perez and brought in Pukki, John McGinn and Kevin De Bruyne, and it was nice that all 3 delivered instantly. So nice to, first 3 transfers of the season paid off. And when I think back to previous seasons where I've done well, more often than not, I was able to nail those transfers. They don't have to deliver right away first game week, but you're hoping in the first couple of weeks that you own them, that they do pay you back. So hopefully, starting as I mean to go on in terms of transfers this season and try and nail as many of those as possible. Very disappointing to lose the Nick Pope clean sheet. What was it, 96th or 97th minute? I just knew it was going to happen. Following that game on Twitter, everyone was getting excited about Nick Pope and bonus points, and they were hoping that he would get one more save before the 90th minute. And when you're hoping for those kind of things, only one thing happens. So disappointing, but again, I'm still very happy with Nick Pope between the sticks. My four premium defenders, again disappointing. Got an assist from Alexander-Arnold, but no clean sheets again for him and Robertson. Lucas Dean and Zinchenko disappointing as well, but I'm pretty happy. I'm sticking with those 4 guys. I've got no plans to move away from those premium defenders just yet. Hopefully patience will be rewarded over the next couple of weeks. Midfielders all delivered. Sterling, captain, Salah, De Bruyne and new boy John McGinn. Up front, Pukki did the business, but Jota didn't once again. So Jota's been very disappointing. He's losing value now as well, and I'll talk to him when it comes to transfers, but it looks like I'm probably going to be stuck with him because I don't have anything in the bank. There's not much you can do for 6.4 million, so he's probably going to get one more game before he gets shipped out after the international break. Talking about my watch list now, so I'm going to mention 5 players I've added to the watch list this week and 3 that I've removed. I'll start with the ones I've removed. Pretty self-explanatory, these ones. Gylfi Sigurdsson, as I mentioned, hauled off in the after an hour. Another disappointing performance. I wouldn't be surprised to see him benched one of these game weeks with Iwobi coming in possibly. So worrying times for anyone who has Sigurdsson, and I think he's an easy sell now given how the first few game weeks have gone. Much better options at cheaper prices. Pedro is another one I've removed. So usually I remove players from my watch list if they pick up an injury. Pedro picked one up in the warm-up before that Chelsea game at the weekend, so he's gone now from my watch list. And Lacazette is another one. So Lacazette didn't start at the weekend, came on for the last 10 minutes. So I've got no interest in a player who costs that much money, who could be on the bench any given game week. So now, more interestingly, which players have I added this week? So which players caught my eye? Which players do I like the stats of? I mentioned Lacazette there. I've removed him, but I've added another Arsenal player this week. The guy Pepe. He impressed me against Liverpool. He probably should have got himself on the score sheet. He had a very good chance one-on-one that he put straight at Adrian. But overall, I thought it was a very, very impressive performance from the new guy. Played 90 minutes. He's 9.4 million, so he's dropped a little bit since game week 1. Arsenal do have Spurs next, so it's probably not the time to be looking at the likes of Pepe, but definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. And I think he could end up becoming an option, possibly as an alternative to the more expensive Aubameyang. So one to keep an eye on there. Another one, similar price, Youngman's Son, 9.5 million. I didn't watch all of the Spurs game, but the parts of the game that I did see, it looked like Son was going to be the most likely goal scorer in that game as opposed to Harry Kane. Looking at the stats, they back that up as well. Son completely outperformed Kane in terms of the underlying statistics in that game. So it's worrying signs for Kane owners, but I think positive signs for Youngman's Son. So again, not looking to bring him in this week, but I'll be watching him closely game week 4. If he passes the eye test again, maybe someone I'll look at after the international break. Talking about Youngman's Son, talking about Spurs in general, things don't seem right there. The Eriksen thing hanging over them. Why is Vertonghen not playing? There seems to be a lot of underlying issues there. So for me, given how the first couple of game weeks have gone, given that defeat against Newcastle, they looked pretty clueless in terms of attacking ideas. No clean sheets this season for Spurs, so again I think it's an easy avoid. Just a wait and see on Spurs. I'm not interested until I see improvements there. I don't see a happy manager, I don't see happy players, so things are not all rosy there. So going to give them a bit of time to settle down this season. Another player who impressed me again in game week 3, James Maddison, priced at 7 million, got his second assist in 3 games. Now, Leicester fixtures are not great, so again, another player I'm not interested in the short term, but I do think there will come a point in the season where I'll be looking to get Maddison in. He did really well for me last season. I think he did miss a penalty for me at one point. Did he get a red card last season too? If he did, I was on him when he did. But I think Maddison looks the best of the Leicester attacking options going on the first 3 game weeks. Again, 3 game weeks, it's not a lot of information, but the signs are good there, I think, for Maddison. Creates a lot of chances, can get goals as well, loads of set pieces. So I think he could be a really good option this season at 7 million. 2 strikers now. So I mentioned I've got Jota stinking out my team. I'll be looking for replacements for him after the international break. And 2 guys who are in the running, Wesley at Aston Villa and Allaire at West Ham. I'll start with Wesley first. He's a lot cheaper than Allaire. Wesley is 6 million. Scored his first goal on Friday night, and you could see, that was a big weight off his shoulders. He had a very good game after that. I thought his all-round game was excellent. hold-up play, took his goal really well. I'm still not 100% convinced he's going to score, bags and bags of goals this season, but I think it's 6 million. I've been impressed by Aston Villa this season. I've got McGinn. Again, the fact that I've got McGinn, it probably makes me less likely to go for Wesley because I don't really fancy the double up from Aston Villa attack. But I think for anyone who doesn't have McGinn, Wesley is definitely one to keep an eye on. Allaire at West Ham, a little bit more expensive, 7.4 million. Missed game week 2 with injury, but came back with a brace in game week 3. Now, how much do we read into that brace? Because he was playing against Watford, who have been atrocious defensively this season. So, let's see how he does in game week 4. He's got Norwich at home. Again, another team who haven't defended very well at all this season. So I think, this week could actually be a good week to get on Allaire if you can get to him easily. I think if I was someone who had cash in the bank and I could get from Jota to Allaire, it's probably a no-brainer this week, given that Norwich fixture for West Ham. So really like the look of Allaire. I probably like him more than Wesley. It's just the price is a little bit off-putting. He is, he's more expensive than the 6.5 million strikers. So for me, I'm hopefully gonna try and catch that West Ham game against Norwich to run the eye test over Allaire once more. And if he passes it, if he gets on the score sheet again, very good chance I'll be looking at him game week 5 then. So that's a couple of options for you to think about, and for me to think about. Those 5 I've mentioned, I'll be keeping a close eye, probably a closer eye on those 5 over during game week 4 than some of the other players on my watch list. Moving on now to the Twitter questions. Loads and loads of questions this week. I think I got over 80 questions on that tweet I sent out yesterday. So thanks to everyone who sends them in. Obviously, I can't go through all of them, or this would be a 3-hour long podcast and nobody wants to listen to me for 3 hours. So I've picked out 5 of the best ones, some that cover some of the main talking points this week. So they'll cover some of the answers. They'll cover some of the questions that I won't answer as well. First one came in from Clopperty, great name. Clopperty asks, should Kane owners stick with him or should they downgrade him? So game week 3 was very disappointing for Kane owners, especially those who captained him against Newcastle. Very easy to say in hindsight that it was a bad decision, a silly decision, but it wasn't. Before game week 3, captaining Kane at home to Newcastle, who just conceded a hat-trick to Timu Pukki, it was a completely justified decision. And I think if I owned Kane, going into game week 3, I probably would have captained him as well. So you can't beat yourself up about these decisions after the fact. Before game week 3, it was a good decision. Obviously now it wasn't, looking back. Now the question is, what do you do with Harry Kane? The issue I would have if I owned him was he did not look good against Newcastle. Tottenham as a whole didn't look great, so I would be pretty worried as a Kane owner. But on the flip side of that, the way Newcastle set up, they made it very, very difficult for Spurs. They had a back 5, 4 midfielders sitting in front of them, so it was always going to be difficult for them to break them down, and just a very frustrating performance. But I think game week 4 Arsenal will be much better for Harry Kane and Spurs attackers. I could easily see Kane doing well in that game. He'll have a lot more space. He'll definitely have more chances than he did against Newcastle. So I think if I owned Kane, as disappointing as it would have been game week 3, I would probably give him one more week. I could easily see him do well in that Arsenal fixture. And we know over the last couple of seasons, he loves that fixture. He loves the North London derby. Arsenal are not a good defensive side, which we've seen against Liverpool. Salah tore them apart. So I expect Spurs to score a couple of goals this weekend, and when Spurs score, you fancy Kane to be involved in some way. He's always got the penalties as well. If David Luiz goes around dragging people by the shirt this weekend, then Kane is going to benefit from that. So I think I would keep him. Now, another reason for keeping him, I'm a big advocate of banking a transfer if any way possible going into an international break, because we often get niggles, injury niggles during the international break. Most of the time they're phantom injuries, because these Premier League players don't want to go away and play international games and risk injury, and their clubs don't really want them going away either. So if you can, if keeping Kane allows you to bank a transfer, I think that's what I would do. And then, give Kane one more game, and then you can make a call on him afterwards, game week 5, and you'll have those 2 free transfers, so you can do a bit of a rejig then if you want to get rid of him. With 2 free transfers, it's much easier to get rid of Kane, maybe downgrade him to someone like Pukki or Barnes, or these guys, Allaire, Wesley, these guys. And then with a second free transfer, you can maybe upgrade a midfielder or pump more money into defence. So that is what I would do if I had Kane. Second question is from Ruslan this week. Ruslan asks, what is my view on the Liverpool defence? What is my view on having 2 of them ahead of 2 easy fixtures? Now, what I would say about this question is there's no such thing as easy fixtures in the Premier League, as has been proven in the last couple of weeks. The big teams are not keeping clean sheets. Liverpool are not keeping clean sheets. Spurs don't have any. Man City are not even keeping many either. So there is no easy fixtures in the Premier League. Now, on paper, Liverpool have Burnley next, and they have Newcastle. So on paper, you would be hopeful that they would have, at least one clean sheet there, if not two. So overall, what is my view on the Liverpool defence? I've got two of them. I've got Alexander-Arnold, and I've got Robertson. And watching the Arsenal game, I was kind of, watching it. I was a very happy owner watching that game up until they conceded, obviously. Not so much in terms of clean sheets, but how attacking those two guys were. Robertson and Trent were just basically camped in the Arsenal half. It helped that Arsenal played a diamond, gave Trent and Robertson the freedom of the left hand side and the right hand side. It was disappointing, really, just to get one assist out of those two in that game, given how many chances they both had, how many chances they both created. And the clean sheets will come. I've no doubt about that. Adrian is a liability. He, at one point in that Arsenal game, he came out, Van Dijk had the situation under control, and Adrian came out and cleared it straight to Aubameyang, who almost punished him, just put it wide. So, obviously, the sooner Alisson gets back, the better for Liverpool defenders, but I'm hopeful. I kind of like the fact that a lot of people are getting rid of their Liverpool defenders. My hope as an owner of two of them is that people sell the likes of Robertson, Van Dijk, Trent, and then over the next two games, hopefully that's when the two clean sheets come, and we know attack and returns will come as well. So that's my hope. I've probably got more faith in them than others do, and I'm just hoping that patience is rewarded. So it hasn't even crossed my mind to sell either Robertson or Trent, and it's mainly because how impressed I've been with him this season going forward. Trent is an absolute machine going forward. He's got set pieces, and Robertson, actually, I feel very unlucky to have just 6 points from Robertson over the first 3 game weeks, because he looks even better going forward this season than he did last season. 0 goals last season. I'd bet my house on it this season. If I had a house that I owned, I would bet my money on Robertson scoring at least 2 goals this season based on those first 2 fixtures. He's shooting a lot more. He's getting a lot of touches in the box. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see Robertson get on the score sheet. We know he'll get assists, but hopefully he can add goals to that as well. So I'm very confident in Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. So I'm more than happy to keep them for the next 2 game weeks at least. Next question is from Alex Ball, top manager Alex, who is part of the Elite 64, which I used to be a part of. I'm stuck in the qualifier league this season. Alex asks, what is the ideal strike force now with budget options available? And Alex asks, is moving to 3 strikers up top viable? So let's say I was on a wildcard this week. What would I do up front? I think I would still stick with my, a decent amount of money in defence. I would still stick with, quite a bit of money invested in midfield in Sterling, Salah and De Bruyne. So it doesn't leave much cash up front. So I think I would be on budget strikers. Pukki is a no-brainer. I think I would probably put Barnes in alongside him, even though he has Liverpool next. As I said, I'm confident of returns from the Liverpool defenders over the next couple of weeks, but part of me is also just ready for Barnes to score in game week 4 to wipe out those clean sheets again. Given the form he's in, he's just a no-brainer, I think, as well with Pukki. So I think I'd probably end up having 5 midfielders and 2 budget strikers, and it probably would be Pukki and Barnes. But again, as I mentioned, the likes of Allaire and Wesley are in my thoughts as well. And there's other options there as well. I've only mentioned a couple of them there. Is 3 strikers viable? I think it is. I think if you want to go 3-4-3, there's lots of options there. It just depends how you want to play it. And definitely with these budget strikers, you could even look at something like Pukki, Barnes, and maybe someone a bit more expensive. Dare I say it, Callum Wilson, or Vardy got on the score sheet again. Or maybe a strike force of Pukki, Barnes, and Allaire could be rewarding as well. I'm keeping a close eye on this guy Keane at Everton as well, even though Everton worry me. They just never look like scoring many goals in the last couple of weeks. So maybe Keane and Iwobi will help things there. But it is too early to go for Keane yet. But I think he's another name we could all be looking at in a couple of weeks' time if he can hit the ground running when he starts getting starts. So I think for me it'd probably be 2 strikers, probably Barnes and Pukki for obvious reasons. But definitely 3 strikers I think is viable as well. Next question came in from FPL Pistolinas. He or she asks, how much are your transfer decisions related to stats like XG and XA? So basically this question is, how much does expected stats influence my decision making in FPL? And the answer to that is very, very little. Possibly they have absolutely no effect on my decision making. I look at a lot of stats, but I only look at stats after I've watched games. So for me, eye test has always and always will be number one. I'm lucky that I've got time to watch a lot of games. I don't have kids, so I've got a lot of time at the weekends to watch games, and obviously I'm doing this FPL stuff full time, so I can record games at the weekend as well and watch them during the week. So I always end up watching probably 5 or 6 games from each game week, 90 minutes. So in doing that, I don't really need to look at the stats too much from those games because I've already made up my own mind from watching 90 minutes. In saying that, I do always look at the stats each week, but I do look at expected stats, but I don't look at them as much as a lot of other FPL managers do. And it's probably a bit of stubbornness in a way, because the way I look at it is, I got 3 top 500 finishes before expected stats even existed. So why do I need to use them now? Now, maybe that's not the right way to look at it, but when I'm looking at stats each week, I'm looking at all the regular stuff, defenders, touches in the final third, midfielders, chances created, goal attempts, all that kind of stuff, strikers, shots in the box, penalty box touches, all that kind of stuff. And I do always, hit the expected stats tab as well, but it's always just a quick look as just to get, as part of an overall view of all stats. I just look at it as well, but it's never come down to, if I'm making a transfer on a Friday and I'm looking at 2 players, let's say I'm looking at Pukki, let's say I'm looking at Barnes and trying to decide on which one I'm going to go for. Expected stats, XA or XG is not going to be the deciding factor. It's part of an overall view of things. So my transfers are based on eye test number 1. I like to look at the stats maybe to back up what I've seen, or maybe to pick holes in what I've seen with my own eyes. Stats can be a good reality check because you can be biased as well from, what you see. So yeah, for me, expected stats, I do look at them, but I don't rely heavily on them at all. Last question this week I will tackle is from the Tinkerman. The Tinkerman asks, will I ever buy Callum Wilson again? So yeah, long-time followers of me on social media will know my struggles with Callum Wilson. Owned him 4 or 5 times and he's never scored a single goal while he's been in my team. Got a couple of assists out of him, game week 1 and 2, and then sold him for Pukki game week 3. The question, will I ever buy him again? I'd say there's a very good chance that I will, because I think he's a very good player and I think he will become a very good FPL asset again at some point this season. I was talking about ideal strike forces there. I don't think Wilson would be in my ideal strike force right now if I was wildcarding, but that can change quickly. If Wilson bangs in a couple of goals next couple of game weeks, he'll be back on my watch list and he'll be back on my radar. So as much as he has troubled me, I think it would be very silly for me to say I'm never buying that guy again, because you can't be stubborn in FPL. You can't be stubborn with players. You can't be stubborn with teams. You got to just give them all a clean slate. And I'm a very forgiving person in life, and I'm a very forgiving person in FPL as well. So don't be surprised to see Callum Wilson come back in a couple of weeks. But don't worry, I'll give you all a fair warning before I do so. Moving on now to captaincy and transfers for Game Week 4. So I put a tweet out this morning about captaincy for Game Week 4. I just said, forget about which players you own and who is the best captaincy option for Game Week 4. I put 4 options: Sterling, Aguero, Mo Salah, and the legend that is Teemu Pukki. At the time of recording, there's almost 9,000 votes on that, so a good, gives us a good idea of what people are thinking for captaincy this week. And hopefully most people vote in that poll regardless of which player they have, because you'll always find with polls, people will vote for the players that they have. If someone doesn't have Aguero, if they think he's the best captain, they'll still vote for Sterling because they own Sterling and they're going to captain Sterling. So hopefully just by wording that tweet slightly differently, it gives that a better reflection of captaincy this week. So the stats, the poll as it stands, Sterling got a huge 55% of the vote. No surprise there, given how consistent he's been this season. Aguero came second with 24%. Salah, somewhat surprisingly to me, only got 13%, given what he done, given his brace last week. Maybe, it's Burnley away, it's not a great fixture, and Man City are home to Brighton, so that is a much better fixture on paper. And Pookie got a respectable 8%. I had to throw him into the poll there after what he's done last couple of weeks. I don't really expect anyone to follow through and captain him, especially if they've got the likes of Sterling, Aguero and Salah, but I think he deserved his place in that poll this week. So for me, I don't have Aguero. So for me, it is between Sterling and Salah, which it is every week. I pick those two. I pick Sterling and Salah at the start of the season with captaincy in mind, because it takes the stress out of the captaincy each week. You just choose one of those and just be done with it. I haven't really got it right, I don't think, yet. I went Sterling last week, and I went Salah the week before, and neither of those were both. If I flipped both of those, I would have been better off, but we're not complaining when we get returns. So yeah, for me, I don't have Aguero, so it's going to be Sterling for me. It's just that fixture, I can't look past it. Brighton at home, I fully expect 4-5-0 Man City in that game. Yeah, hopefully they do win 2-0, so I get a Zinchenko clean sheet out of it as well. So Sterling for me, it's a no-brainer. Salah's away to Burnley. We know Burnley is not an easy fixture for anyone. I think Salah had a lot of joy against Arsenal. I don't think he'll have as much joy, as much space against Burnley. So for me, it's an easy one this week. I do think for anyone who does have Aguero, I think he's an excellent option this week. At home, again, we know Aguero is so consistent at home. He's in great form. City are in great form. So I think if I had Aguero, I'd be strongly considering him this week as well. So that's captaincy covered. Talking about transfers now, I've probably already mentioned my plans. It's one of my big plans coming into this season was, once every game week finishes, the first question I'm asking myself is, can I bank a transfer? So when I ask myself this question this week, can I bank a transfer? The answer is yes, because I don't have any major issues. I know a lot of people who have the likes of Martial, maybe Mason Mount. There's a lot of, there's some doubts this week. So thankfully I don't have any headaches at this point, recording on Tuesday. Hopefully there's no issues in the midweek Carabao Cup games. Hopefully Jota comes through on Thursday night without injury as well. So for me at this point on Tuesday, it's going to be a bank, and 2 free transfers after the international break is always nice. I don't have any plans to wildcard anytime soon. I'm pretty happy with my start to the season. I think I'm sitting at about 375k. Not that rank matters until February, March, April time anyway, but it's nice to be in a decent position. And overall, I'm just very happy with my squad setup. I think that -4 last week, the 3 transfers, it set me up quite well for the next couple of weeks. So I'm more than happy just to forget I have the wildcard, really, until it's needed. So for me, it's going to be hopefully a nice stress-free international break without having to tinker with a wildcard squad. I've wildcarded quite often during the first international break over the last couple of seasons, but one thing I don't like about wildcarding during an international break is you've got way too much time to tinker. I much rather play in a wildcard when you've only got a week as opposed to 2 weeks, because when you've got 2 weeks, it leads to overthinking, over-tinkering, and that is never good for FPL. So I think anyone who does wildcard over the international break, what I would probably do is, get the players in on the first day of the international break who could rise in price. Obviously keep the guys in your team who you've got a bit of team value in, who you think you could end up keeping on your wildcard squad, and then just forget about it for at least a week and come back to it in the second week and do your tinkering then. Because if you log in every day for 2 weeks, you're going to fry your brain and you're going to make bad decisions. So don't overdo it is my advice for anyone wildcarding during the international break. There will be no podcast next Tuesday. I will do a podcast in the second week of the international break. So that's what I'll do every international break this season. I won't do a pod the first week. I'll wait until the second week. So no podcast next Tuesday. So the next 59th minute will be 2 weeks from today. And as always, it'll be with you by 5 p.m. UK time. So keep an eye out for that one during the break. If you enjoyed this podcast, as always, give it a retweet on Twitter. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Leave a review on iTunes if you're listening there. All the likes and shares are always appreciated. And if you would like to hear more podcasts from me, more articles, more content, check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/FPL General. You'll find a link to that on my Twitter account, which is at FPL General as well. As always, the match reports from the season ticket holders are on the website, fplgeneral.com. There's about 4 or 5 up there currently. I'll be adding 2 or 3 more today, and then the rest throughout the week. So every week you've got match reports from people who are at the games, so they're really helpful. So check those out if you get a chance as well. I recorded a Fantasy Weekly podcast today with James as well. He's back from Croatia, so we recorded a nice short podcast. I think it's under 40 minutes this week. That will be available Wednesday at 2 p.m. I'll be, as usual, I'll have a blog article on the Fantasy Bet blog this week, later in the week as well, probably Thursday, with a few player picks for Gameweek 4. And as always, I'll be playing in the Grand Weekend tournament on Fantasy Bet this weekend. $5.50 to enter a team, £2,500 in prizes to be won. So basically, it's like a free hit squad. You pick a team for Game Week 4 only, and if you score 80, 90, 100 points, you're going to pocket yourself some cash there. So as always, Fantasy Bet is 18 plus only, and begambleaware.org. Enjoy your week, folks. Good luck in Game Week 4. Enjoy the international break. Don't miss my voice too much next week, and I'll be back 2 weeks from today with another episode. Cheerio, folks.